Today I'll talk about how we could reduce environmental footprints using autonomous vehicles as a research tool and a sensor platform from space to the seafloor. So, we are really addressing one of the science dilemmas working in the Arctic. We need to get data, but we also know that getting the data will make logistical footprints and also having personnel on site. We would have to use either boats, helicopter, or snowmobiles, or go by foot. And this again would cause emissions, mechanical disturbance, and also disturb wildlife. So how could we reduce that? I don't think we can ever replace it all, but we can reduce it. So that's where the introduction of drones, and this is drones in a quite wide perspective, or autonomous systems from satellites to aircraft to surface vehicles and underwater vehicles and bottom installations. And this is also much what SIOS is about and how to use this. And now we are looking at how we could use the more autonomous systems to reduce these footprints even further. And there are some low-hanging fruits, just taking some simple systems out in the field and reducing the footprint you have on that particular campaign. And then there are some future targets also that could have potential very large savings in the footprint, but maybe not as mature all the technologies. So we get into that and give some examples. So we have a lot of research tools, and this figure kind of illustrates it from satellites and aircraft, research vessels, ROVs, AUVs, and bottom frames. And this is what we need to make complete observing systems to get the environmental data that we need. And then is the question, can we reduce the footprints and also introducing autonomy use then tools that have smaller footprints and smaller emissions and also lower cost, so that we could do even better and afford more surveillance. Of course, we could have flying, there's a lot of different platforms, from small drones and a couple of 100 grams to big aircraft that weighs up to several tons. And also developing these tools with even smaller and smaller footprints is part of the research that's done on drones today. And we see a movement from gasoline and fossil fuel systems to electrical systems. And here is an example of some surface drones as well, especially like the sail buoy here could be out almost for a year. And the advantage of these active buoys, you could say, compared to traditional buoys, which you have to go out with a boat and launch. These could you actually launch from basically from the harbor, and they will find the way out and stay in the target area, and you could also redirect them. So potentially, especially saving ship time, could potentially save great amounts of fuel, but also impact on what you are measuring. For example, with the echo sounder here, you won't scare the fish or the things that you are looking for, but the boat with the noise also affects actually what you're measuring in many times. So what is the future? Well, autonomous systems and could be put together to actually form an autonomous observing system. And this is just a cartoon showing some of how I think that combining all these different assets and tools I've spoken about could then constitute a complete system. And you could also then optimize how you use them by coupling them with modeling. In this way, you could actually make an optimization problem out of it, because you could actually use the measurements you do and the models to figure out where would these assets now make the most impact, where will they reduce the uncertainty in the model the most and give the best benefit. And also, all these systems are expensive, so if we could reduce the amounts needed by using them more optimal, that would make the observing system more affordable, which is important for science. And what is making this possible now is that we have certain enabling factors that have come to play in the last few years. For example, that sensors are becoming smaller, they are less expensive, and also smarter. We have better battery systems. We have small computers that doesn't need much power, so you could actually then process on board. And we also get global coverage by satellite data, and we could start let data flow in real time. And within the next few years, we have these huge new satellite communication networks also that will keep supporting and enabling even more of this kind of thinking. So having all automated, we also need to develop the onboard systems for real-time processing and data transfer, so that the data could get back to the models and you could feed back with navigation and the optimization of your infrastructure. So of course, there are challenges in communication. I spoke about satellite networks that are coming. They are not there yet, but as you saw, for example, Iridium satellite, you could get some data, but only 2 kilobits, so it's very narrow. But if you keep feeding with that, that gives you an opportunity. And for example, underwater drones have difficulties in transferring data, at least a large amount, since they have to use acoustic. But for example, using a sail buoy as a relay up to satellite, you could increase also both the amount of data and also the real-time aspects of getting data. So that's important. So some examples on the use of drones. This is a drone flying close to the North Pole, measuring snow on sea ice. We are now also looking at changing frequencies to be able to measure the sea ice thickness. This is a local drone, so it's operated from the ship, so you don't save the ship. But larger drones are coming and being more common. And if we could then save having a ship to go up, we could really start talking about having really reducing footprints, and this will come. But there's an example from use of sail buoy, not close to Svalbard, since you see it's the South Shetland Islands, not the normal Shetland Islands we're operating here, so it's close to the Antarctic Peninsula. But it shows how sail buoys can be out for extended amounts of time and gather data. In this case, we looked for krill, for example. And you could put different sensors on this, both meteorological, and we could also look for other kinds of bioresources, but also traditional oceanographic data like salinity, temperature, and so on. And of course, drones could be used in a lot of different aspects. Here's an example from 2014, when we had the drones out from KV Svalbard between Jan Mayen and Greenland, looking at for seals, counting them when they are getting the pups. So here's an example on some pups, and then flying. We could fly transects of hundreds of kilometers with fixed wing drones, and this is how we kind of then stitch together. And if you really look, this is high resolution, so if you zoom in, you could actually see them like this. And here also modern techniques like machine learning would help identify and count these kinds of populations, and the alternative is to rent a Dornier or other large aircraft from Greenland to come and fly. So this also helps reducing footprints quite a lot, but still these long-range smaller UAVs are not as mature as the multi-rotors as you saw previously, but now this is coming, and also one are looking at using fuel cells and hydrogen even in that type, so you could even get zero emission systems coming. Here's an example from Adventdalen, which we did in 2014 with regard to looking at vegetation using a small fixed-wing drone to collect NVI data. And we get so high resolution on some of these that we could even go down almost into the individual plant, and this way also reduce the need for people to go out onto a vulnerable tundra, because with small drones you could fly low and get millimeter resolution, and then reduce some of the impact that we as humans would do if we went into the field. But as I said, you can't replace our humans totally, but you can reduce and get more value of the data. And this is similar for Kronebreen, which we did with a slightly larger fixed wing and made 3D models, and we did that to repeated days to look at the glacier dynamics, for example. Alternatives would be to fly in with helicopters and put up GPS stands and measure, but that is both more risky and of course also more expensive often than using small and rather inexpensive drones. And if one is a bit inventive, one could even park drones and measure over some time and then fly them away again. So with the combination of some domain knowledge like glaciologists and botanists and so on, together with technologists, I think one could do a lot by introducing these new platforms to reduce the footprints. And here's also some examples from sea ice. This is also KV Svalbard in Storfjorden, and we looked at how we could measure ice ridge thickness and ice freeboard from drones using photogrammetry. So this is an example taken then in 2013. And also in this case, we had people on the ice to measure and verify the results that we found. So this is again an example with as the drone I showed, which we actually managed to measure the snow on the ice, but we could also distinguish between first year, second year and multi-year ice, but we can't, with this high frequency, we can't measure the sea ice thickness, but we can measure a lake thickness, as you could see from this image here, where we flew over a lake, and you could see that we have about 25 centimeters of snow, and then we saw that we had about 60 centimeters of clear ice, and then we have the water interface at the bottom. So some concluding remarks. Drones do not replace the need for in-situ fieldwork with traditional methods, but they could reduce the footprint once you are in the field. They can reduce the need for manned ships and aircraft for certain types of measurements, so they can be used for what we need to use them for, and thus reducing the total footprint. And also increase access to data and long time series in hard to get areas. For example, into the sea ice towards the north and the North Pole, or to North Östlandet without actually getting there. It could be a lot easier from logistics to just fly out of Longyearbyen and do the measurements. Or send out a sail buoy, for example. So thank you for attention, and this is a image of the drone center in Ny-Ålesund. We haven't been able to use it so much for the last couple of years, but we hope to get some more funding to go up there and do interesting campaigns. But also it's happening a lot also on the underwater vehicles that we should pay attention to, and also how we could put it all together into more comprehensive observing systems that could give us the time series that we need to monitor the changing Arctic. So thank you.